Sinita Begay's heart raced as she pulled into the driveway of her father-in-law Kale Tso's modest adobe-style home, the desert sun casting long shadows across the Navajo reservation. She was 34, a nurse with a gentle smile and a fire for helping others, clutching a homemade pinyon nut cake and a bag of vibrant birthday streamers. Today was Kale's 66th birthday, a day meant for joy after a brutal year. But as she approached the front door, an icy chill gripped her. The door was ajar, the house deathly silent. No laughter, no warmth, just an unsettling void. Her husband, Tahoma, and his mother, Ai, had promised to be here, helping Kale prepare. Where were they? Sinita's gut screamed something was wrong, a betrayal lurking just beyond the threshold. What she'd find inside would shatter her world, exposing a web of lies spun by those she trusted most. Could she face the truth waiting in the shadows? And what secret was Kale hiding that would change everything? Stay with us, because this story of heartbreak and courage will leave you speechless. Sinita stepped cautiously into the dimly lit living room, the scent of sage and dust lingering in the air. The wheelchair ramp outside, built by her and Tahoma after Kale's accident at a wind farm construction site, gleamed unused. Kale, a proud man who'd spent decades building homes across the Southwest, had been paralyzed 6 months ago when a turbine blade collapsed. The doctors said he'd never walk again, a blow that dimmed his once bright spirit. Sinita had rearranged her grueling shifts at Dine Medical Center to care for him, her bond with Kale deeper than family. She taught him to cook fry bread, and he'd shared stories of his youth herding sheep under starlit skies. They were supposed to celebrate today, a small gathering to lift his spirits. But the silence was oppressive, like a storm about to break. Kale, she called, setting the cake on a weathered wooden table. No answer. Her nurse's instincts kicked in. Had he fallen? Was he hurt? The decorations slipped from her hand as she moved toward the kitchen, her boots echoing on the tile. A half-eaten fry bread pizza sat cold on the counter, a single glass of water beside it, untouched for hours. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from Tahoma. Stuck at work. Start without me. Her heart sank. He'd been distant lately, always with excuses, his eyes avoiding hers. She texted back, "Where's your mom?" She promised to be here. No reply. The unease grew, clawing at her chest. Sinita moved down the hallway, her pulse pounding. "Kale, it's me," she called louder now. A faint rustle came from his bedroom. Pushing the door open, she found him in his wheelchair by a window, gazing at the Red Rock Hills. His gray hair was unkempt, his eyes hollow, not with the pain of his injury, but something deeper, raw. "Kale, you scared me," she said, kneeling beside him. "Why didn't you answer?" He turned slowly, his face etched with a grief she'd never seen, even in the hospital. "I heard you," he said, voice flat. "They're not coming, Sinita." Confusion swirled in her mind. "What do you mean?" "Tahoma's just late, and Ai said she'd be here all day." Kale's hands tightened on his wheelchair, his knuckles pale. "They're gone. Both of them." His words hit like a punch. "Gone?" Ai, who'd reappeared in Kale's life after years of absence, had been oddly attentive since the accident, always hovering, always prying. Sinita had brushed off her snide remarks about her cooking or her overzealous nursing, but Kale's warning last year echoed now. Ai only shows up when she smells money. Why hadn't Sinita listened? Her phone vibrated again. A video call from Tahoma. Relief flooded her. Maybe he'd explain. But when she answered, the sight stole her breath. Tahoma grinned from a sun-drenched beach, palm trees swaying behind him, a garish floral shirt she didn't recognize clinging to his frame. Beside him, Ai held a cocktail, her smirk venomous. "Surprise, honey." Tahoma slurred, raising a glass. "Where in the Bahamas?" Sinita's heart stopped. The Bahamas? On Kale's birthday? As the truth sank in, a darker question loomed. What else were they hiding? And what had Kale discovered that made his eyes burn with such quiet fury? The desert wind howled outside Kale Tso's adobe home, as if echoing the storm brewing in Sinita Begay's heart. She stood frozen, her phone still glowing with the image of her husband Tahoma and his mother Ai lounging in the Bahamas, their laughter mocking Kayleigh's abandoned birthday. The pinyon nut cake sat untouched on the table, a symbol of broken promises. Sineda's mind raced. How could they leave Kayleigh, a man bound to a wheelchair after a wind farm accident, alone on a special day? But Kayleigh's eyes, sharp with a fire she hadn't seen since before the accident, held a secret that promised to unravel everything. What had he been hiding? And how deep did this betrayal run? You won't believe what Sineda was about to discover. A truth that would turn her world upside down and set her on a path of fierce determination. Kayleigh wheeled himself closer, his weathered hands steady despite the pain etched into his face. "Sineda," he said, voice low but resolute, "there's something I need to show you." Her heart pounded as he maneuvered to his bedside, the creak of the wheelchair cutting through the heavy silence. She'd known Kayleigh as a vibrant man, once chasing wild horses across the reservation, his laughter filling their family gatherings. 6 months ago, a collapsed turbine blade had stolen that vitality, leaving him paralyzed, or so everyone thought. Sineda had poured her soul into his care, balancing hospital shifts with late-night visits, teaching him her grandmother's fry bread recipe to coax a smile. But now, his gaze held a strength that made her question everything. "Watch closely," Kayleigh said, gripping the armrests of his wheelchair. Sineda's breath caught as he took a deep, shuddering breath and pushed himself upward. His legs trembled, muscles straining, but he stood, unsteady yet defiant, leaning against the bed for support. "Oh my God," Sineda whispered, her nurse's training warring with disbelief. "You can stand." Kayleigh nodded, sweat beading on his brow as he carefully lowered himself back into the chair. "Not well, and not far," he said, exhaling. "But for 2 months, I've been regaining feeling. Small movements at first, then more. I've been exercising in secret." Sineda's mind reeled. The doctors had called his recovery unlikely, a prognosis that had crushed them all. She remembered Kayleigh's hollow stare in the hospital, the day they learned he might never walk again. Yet here he was, defying the odds. "Why keep this a secret?" she asked, her voice trembling with awe and confusion. Kayleigh's expression darkened, his eyes glinting with a mix of pain and resolve. "Because I overheard something I wasn't supposed to," he said. 2 months ago, Tahoma and Ai were in the kitchen, thinking I was asleep. They were talking about my settlement money, the insurance from the accident. Her stomach twisted. The settlement was meant to cover Kayleigh's ongoing care, physical therapy, and home modifications like the ramp outside. Sineda had trusted Tahoma to manage it, believing his excuses about work stress and late nights. But Kayleigh's next words hit like a sandstorm. "They were planning to take it all," he said. "Ai suggested declaring me mentally unfit to control my finances. Tahoma said that'd take too long. He wanted to be added as a co-signer on my accounts, make it look like he was helping. They thought I was helpless, Sineda. So I played along, pretending I was still fully paralyzed to watch them." Sineda's knees weakened, and she sank onto the bed. The man she'd married, who'd promised to love and honor her, was scheming against his own father? And Ai, who'd abandoned Kayleigh and Tahoma years ago, only to slink back after the accident, was complicit? Sineda recalled Ai's barbed comments, calling her too involved in Kayleigh's care, mocking her fry bread as greasy. She'd brushed it off, but now it felt like a warning she'd ignored. "What did they say about the money?" she asked, dreading the answer. Kayleigh reached under his mattress, pulling out a small, worn notebook. "I started writing things down," he said, handing it to her. Pages were filled with dates, times, and overheard snippets. Tahoma whispering about moving funds, Ai laughing about a fresh start. Each word was a dagger, slicing through Sineda's trust. "They've already taken thousands," Kayleigh said. "Small amounts at first, but it's growing. I think they're planning something bigger." The notebook trembled in her hands as she read, each entry a step deeper into a betrayal she couldn't yet fathom. As the desert stars began to pierce the night sky outside, Sineda felt a spark of resolve ignite within her. Kayleigh's secret strength wasn't just physical. It was a courage that called to her own. Whatever Tahoma and Ai were planning, they wouldn't get away with it. But what was their endgame? And how far would Syneda and Kayleigh have to go to stop them? The answers lay in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered, pulling her into a fight she never expected. The desert night pressed against Kayleigh Tso's adobe home, stars flickering like witnesses to the storm brewing within Syneda Begay. Her hands still clutched Kayleigh's notebook, its pages heavy with evidence of her husband Tahoma and his mother Ai's betrayal. Just hours ago, she'd seen them on a video call, laughing on a Bahamian beach while Kayleigh, thought to be paralyzed, sat alone on his birthday. The sting of their callousness burned deeper now, knowing they'd been stealing from his medical fund. Syneda's heart pounded with a mix of grief and fury. How could the man she loved, who'd vowed to stand by her, mock his own father's suffering? But the truth was about to cut even deeper, in a moment so raw it would leave her breathless. What would Tahoma say next to shatter her world? And what clue would spark Syneda's resolve to fight back? Hang on, because this betrayal is only the beginning of a story that'll grip your soul. Syneda sank onto the couch, the pinion nut cake she'd baked for Kayleigh's birthday a forgotten relic on the table. Her phone lay in her lap, the video call from Tahoma replaying in her mind. His slurred voice, Ai's venomous smirk, the palm trees swaying behind them. It felt like a cruel dream. Kayleigh, now back in his wheelchair to maintain his secret, watched her with steady eyes. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but laced with the same pain she felt. She shook her head, unable to speak. The man who'd taught her to dance under the reservation's starry skies, who'd promised forever, was a stranger now. But she needed answers. She replayed the call in her memory, every word a fresh wound. "Hey," Syneda, surprise. Tahoma had grinned, raising a cocktail glass. "Mom won this Bahamas trip in a contest. Had to take it now or lose it." Ai leaned in, her wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow. "You should see your face, girl," she'd cackled. "Cat got your tongue?" Syneda had barely managed to speak. "It's Kayleigh's birthday. We had plans." Ai's eyes rolled. "Oh, please, he's probably napping through it. Did he eat the pizza we left?" Syneda glanced at Kayleigh, whose jaw tightened. He'd heard every word through the phone. "You left him alone," she'd said, voice shaking. "A paralyzed man. On his birthday?" Tahoma's laugh had been sharp, careless. "He's fine, Syneda. You're there now, right? Perfect. You can play nurse while we get some sun." Ai chimed in, her tone dripping with disdain. "Always so dramatic, Syneda. Such a good little caregiver, cleaning up our messes." Syneda's blood boiled at the memory. She thought Tahoma was at work, not sipping cocktails on stolen money. The settlement from Kayleigh's accident, meant for his therapy, his care, his life, was funding their escape. How long had they been planning this? Kayleigh wheeled closer, his voice pulling her back. "There's more in the notebook," he said, pointing to the pages in her hand. Syneda flipped through, finding a chilling entry. Tahoma on phone, 3 weeks ago, said, "Once we move him, we're free. The money's ours." Move him? Her stomach churned. Were they planning to abandon Kayleigh entirely? She looked at him, his face etched with a quiet strength that belied his supposed frailty. "They think you're helpless," she said, realization dawning. "That's why they're so bold." Kayleigh nodded. "And I let them think it. Every day I hid my progress, I heard more. They're not just taking money, Syneda. They're planning to disappear with it." Her phone buzzed again, a new message from Tahoma. "Having a blast. Don't wait up. We're here another week." Attached was a photo of him and Ai at a luxury resort, the ocean glittering behind them. Syneda's hands shook as she showed Kayleigh. "This resort," she whispered. "It's thousands of dollars a night. How much have they taken?" Kayleigh's eyes darkened. "Enough to think they've won." The weight of their betrayal settled over her like dust after a storm, but beneath it, a fire kindled. Syneda wasn't just a nurse or a wife. She was a fighter, and Kayleigh's courage was waking her own. As the desert wind rattled the windows, Syneda felt a shift. The video call wasn't just a betrayal. It was a gauntlet thrown down. Tahoma and Ai thought they could mock Kayleigh, mock her, and walk away unscathed. But they'd underestimated the bond between Tsinada and Kayleigh, forged in fry-bread lessons and shared grief. What would they find in Tahoma's laptop? And how far would this scheme unravel? The answers were close, and Tsinada was ready to chase them, no matter the cost. The desert moon hung low over Kayleigh's adobe home, casting silver light through the windows as Tsinada Begay sat at the kitchen table, her heart still reeling from Tahoma and Ai's callous video call from the Bahamas. Their laughter, mocking Kayleigh's birthday while they spent his medical fund, echoed in her mind. Kayleigh's notebook, filled with chilling snippets of their overheard plans, lay open before her, each page a testament to a betrayal deeper than she'd imagined. Tsinada, a nurse who'd seen pain in countless forms, felt this wound cut to her core. Her husband and his mother weren't just stealing money, they were stealing Kayleigh's future. But what she and Kayleigh were about to uncover would expose a scheme so ruthless it would leave you gasping. Could they gather the evidence to stop it? And what darker plan was hidden in those pages? Stay with us, because this story's next twist will hook you tight. Kayleigh wheeled himself to the table, his eyes sharp despite the late hour. "You need to see this," he said, sliding the notebook closer. Tsinada's fingers trembled as she turned to a page marked with a date from 3 months ago. If we get him declared unfit, the money's ours. No one will question it. Tahoma, too slow. I'll forge the power of attorney quicker. Her breath caught. A power of attorney? To control Kayleigh's finances, his care, his life? The settlement from his wind farm accident, hundreds of thousands meant for therapy and home modifications, was their target. Tsinada's mind flashed to Ai's sly comments, calling her overprotective for checking Kayleigh's medications, and Tahoma's late night work calls that always ended when she entered the room. How had she missed this? "There's more," Kayleigh said, his voice steady but heavy with pain. He reached under the table, pulling out a manila envelope hidden in a secret compartment. Inside were bank statements, withdrawal slips, and printed emails, evidence of their theft. Tsinada's eyes scanned the numbers. $5,000 here, $10,000 there, totaling nearly $60,000 siphoned from Kayleigh's fund. One email from Tahoma to Ai read, "Booked Sunset Lodge for him. Cheap, out of the way. Will be free by next month." Sunset Lodge? Tsinada knew it, a rundown nursing home on the edge of the reservation, notorious for neglect. "They're planning to dump you there?" she whispered, horrified. Kayleigh nodded, his jaw tight. "I overheard them last month, arguing about splitting the money. You wanted more for babysitting me." Tahoma said the nursing home would solve everything. "They think I'm a burden, Tsinada." His words landed like stones in her chest. Kayleigh, who'd raised Tahoma alone after Ai left when he was a boy, who taught Tsinada to carve cedar flutes, was reduced to a pawn in their greed. She thought of their wedding, Tahoma's promises under the desert stars. Had it all been a lie? Each document she read felt like peeling back a layer of deception, revealing a calculated plan that began the moment Kayleigh's accident gave them access to a settlement. Tsinada's nurse's instincts kicked in, her shock turning to resolve. "We need to check our joint account," she said, grabbing her phone. Logging into their bank app, she found large deposits labeled consulting fees, dates matching the withdrawals from Kayleigh's fund. "They're laundering it through us," she said, voice shaking. Kayleigh leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Look at this one." He pointed to a transfer to an unfamiliar bank. "Offshore, maybe. They're covering their tracks." The realization hit hard. This wasn't impulsive theft, but a meticulously planned heist, with Tahoma and Ai plotting to vanish once Kayleigh was locked away. As the night deepened, the desert's silence seemed to amplify their determination. Tsinada traced a finger over an email where Ai mentioned appraising the house. Were they planning to sell Kayleigh's home, too? The thought made her sick, but it also steeled her. Kayleigh's hidden strength, his secret recovery and sharp mind, was their weapon. "We're not letting them get away with this," she said, meeting his gaze. Kayleigh's faint smile held a spark of the man who'd once outrun sandstorms. I was hoping you'd say that, he replied. I've got one more thing to show you. What was it? A clue that could unravel Tahoma and Ai's entire plan, waiting to be revealed, pulling Tsinita deeper into a fight for justice. The desert air hung heavy with secrets as Tsinita Begay sat across from Kele Tso, the glow of a single lamp illuminating the scattered bank statements and Kele's notebook on his kitchen table. The sting of Tahoma and Ai's betrayal burned fresh. Tsinita's husband and his mother had stolen $60,000 from Kele's medical fund, plotting to abandon him in a neglectful nursing home while they lived lavishly off his pain. Kele's hidden recovery, his ability to stand despite his supposed paralysis, was a beacon of hope in the darkness, but the fight was far from over. Now, Tsinita and Kele were forging an unbreakable bond, ready to turn their shared pain into a fierce counterstrike. What plan would they hatch to outsmart their betrayers? And who would join their cause to bring justice? You're not going to believe the alliance forming in this quiet adobe home under the desert stars. Stay with us, because this story is about to ignite. Tsinita's hands trembled as she closed the notebook, each entry a wound, but also a weapon. Kele's eyes, sharp with the resilience of a man who'd survived decades of hardship, met hers. We can't let them win, she said, her voice soft but ironclad. Kele nodded, his weathered face set with determination. We won't, but we need help, Tsinita. This is bigger than us. The weight of their discovery, the forged documents, the offshore accounts, the plan to sell Kele's home, pressed down, but it also kindled a fire within her. Tsinita wasn't just a nurse or a betrayed wife. She was Kele's family, bound by loyalty deeper than blood. They needed a strategy, and they needed it now. Kele reached for his phone, his fingers steady despite the late hour. I know someone, he said. Chenoa Yazi, a lawyer from the reservation. She specializes in financial fraud and elder abuse. I called her last week, just in case. Tsinita's heart lifted. Chenoa was a name she'd heard at the medical center, a fierce advocate known for dismantling scams targeting vulnerable dying elders. She's coming tomorrow, Kele added. But we need to gather more evidence before then. Tsinita nodded, her nurse's precision kicking in. She thought of Tahoma's laptop, left carelessly at their shared trailer. Could it hold the key to their plan? I'll check our computer tonight, she said. If they're laundering money through our account, there'll be traces. As the desert night deepened, Tsinita felt the shift between her and Kele. They weren't just victims. They were warriors, united by betrayal, but fueled by purpose. Kele shared more from his notebook. Overheard whispers of Ai contacting real estate agents, Tahoma researching countries without extradition treaties. The audacity of their scheme, planning to vanish with Kele's life savings, made Tsinita's blood boil. But Kele's calm resolve grounded her. I kept quiet to protect you, he said, his voice heavy with guilt. I didn't want to break your heart until I was sure. Tsinita squeezed his hand. You're not breaking me, Kele. You're giving me a reason to fight. The next morning, Chenoa Yazi arrived, her presence commanding yet warm, like the desert sun after a storm. Her sharp eyes scanned Kele's documents as Tsinita recounted the Bahamas call and their findings. This is textbook exploitation, Chenoa said, her pen flying across a legal pad. But we need airtight proof, emails, recordings, witnesses. They're counting on you both staying silent. Tsinita felt a surge of hope. Chenoa outlined a plan. Tsinita would install monitoring software on their home computer to capture Tahoma's digital trail, while Kele would subtly probe Ai during her visits, pretending confusion to draw out more admissions. They think you're helpless, Chenoa told Kele. Use that. Let them underestimate you. Over the next few days, Tsinita worked in secret, her heart pounding each time Tahoma came home. She found emails on his laptop confirming their plan to move Kele to Sunset Lodge, including a chilling note. Once he's in, we sell the house and split for good. Kele, meanwhile, played his part masterfully, asking Ai vague questions about his finances, her dismissive replies revealing more than she intended. Each piece of evidence tightened the net around their betrayers, but the emotional toll was heavy. Tsinita lay awake at night, staring at the trailer's ceiling, wondering how Tahoma could sleep beside her while plotting against his own father. As the desert winds whispered outside, Sinada and Kayleigh's alliance grew stronger, their shared meals of fry bread and coffee becoming strategy sessions. Chenoa's guidance gave them structure, but it was their bond, forged in pain, tempered by trust, that drove them forward. What would Sinada find next on that laptop? And how close were they to turning the tables on Tahoma and Ai? The desert held its breath, waiting for their next move. The desert sky blazed with stars outside Kayleigh's adobe home, but inside, the air crackled with tension as Sinada Begay and Kayleigh prepared for a confrontation that would change everything. Their alliance, forged in the ashes of Tahoma and Ai's betrayal, had grown unbreakable, fueled by evidence of stolen funds, forged documents, and a heartless plan to abandon Kayleigh in a neglectful nursing home. Chenoa Yazi, their sharp-eyed lawyer, had helped them build an airtight case, but now it was time to face the betrayers head-on. Sinada's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a fierce resolve to see justice done. What would happen when Tahoma and Ai walked into the trap? And how would Kayleigh's hidden strength shock them into silence? You're about to witness a showdown so intense it'll leave you on the edge of your seat. Stay with us, because this moment is pure fire. Sinada arranged the dining room table with deliberate care, setting out a simple spread of fry bread and coffee, a facade of normalcy for the meeting she'd planned. Tahoma and Ai were due back from the Bahamas today, their tans and souvenirs masking their theft of $60,000 from Kayleigh's medical fund. Sinada had texted Tahoma, playing the dutiful wife. "We need to discuss Dad's care. Meet at his house, 3 p.m. He'd agreed, oblivious to the storm awaiting. Kayleigh, seated in his wheelchair, practiced his frail act, but his eyes gleamed with the strength he'd hidden for months. "Ready?" Sinada asked, squeezing his shoulder. Kayleigh's nod was firm. "Let's end this." Ai arrived first, her new turquoise jewelry glinting, likely bought with Kayleigh's money. "This better be quick," she said, eyeing the table with a smirk. "I've got plans." Sinada bit back her anger, offering a tight smile. Tahoma strolled in next, kissing her cheek with a distracted air. "Where's Kayleigh?" he asked, avoiding her gaze. "Right here," Kayleigh called from the dining room, his voice weaker than it needed to be. The doorbell rang, and Sinada opened it to Chenoa Yazi, her legal briefcase in hand, followed by Dr. Hastian, Kayleigh's physician, and Shandian, the physical therapist Ai had fired. Tahoma's face paled. "What's this?" he demanded. "A family meeting," Sinada said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Sit." Ai's eyes narrowed. "Who invited them?" she snapped, pointing at Chenoa. Before Sinada could answer, Kayleigh spoke, his tone cutting through the room. "I did. And I have a question, Tahoma. Why are you planning to move me to Sunset Lodge?" The room froze. Tahoma's jaw dropped, and Ai's coffee mug trembled in her hand. "You're confused, Kayleigh," Ai said quickly. "We're just exploring options." Kayleigh's eyes locked on hers. "I'm not confused. I know about the forged power of attorney, and the $60,000 you've stolen." Chenoa opened her briefcase, laying out bank statements, emails, and the forged document. "This is financial exploitation," she said, her voice steady, "and conspiracy to defraud." Tahoma stood, his face flushed. "This is nonsense. You're not well, Dad." "Sinada's twisting your mind," Dr. Hastian spoke up. "I examined Kayleigh last week. His mind is sharper than yours, Tahoma." Shandian added, "His therapy was cut against medical advice because you claimed it was too expensive." Ai's voice rose. "We were protecting his money." "Protecting it?" Kayleigh said, his voice rising. He gripped his wheelchair's armrests, and in a moment that sucked the air from the room, he pushed himself to his feet. Ai gasped, her mug shattering on the floor. Tahoma stumbled back, eyes wide. You can't walk," he stammered. "I've been healing," Kayleigh said, steadying himself on the table. "Something you'd know if you cared enough to notice. Instead, you stole from me, planned to lock me away, and laughed about it." Sinida stepped forward, her voice trembling with rage. You called him a burden while spending his money on your Bahamas trip. The room erupted as Tahoma and Ai turned on each other. It was her idea, Tahoma shouted, pointing at Ai. She wanted the money split. Ai's face twisted. You forged the papers, you coward. Their accusations flew, unraveling their scheme in front of everyone. Chenoa raised a hand. Enough. The police have been briefed. Sinida met Kayleigh's eyes, their shared strength a quiet anchor. What would happen when the police arrived? And how would this confrontation reshape their future? The desert held its breath for the next chapter. The desert night pulsed with anticipation outside Kayleigh Tso's adobe home, where the air still crackled from the explosive confrontation that had just unfolded. Sinida Begay stood by Kayleigh's side, her heart pounding with a mix of triumph and sorrow as Tahoma and Ai's betrayal lay bare, their accusations against each other echoing in the stunned silence. Kayleigh's stunning reveal, he could stand, defying their assumption of his helplessness, had shattered their facade, and Chenoa Yazi's stack of evidence, from bank records to forged documents, sealed their fate. The police were on their way, but the weight of what Sinida and Kayleigh had endured hung heavy. Would justice truly heal the wounds of betrayal? And what would it cost them to see this through? You're not going to believe how this battle ends. Stay with us, because this story's climax will leave you breathless. Chenoa gathered her documents, her calm authority anchoring the room as Tahoma and Ai sat, their bravado crumbling. Sinida's eyes flicked to Kayleigh, now back in his wheelchair, his face etched with quiet resolve despite the effort of standing. The dining room, adorned with fry bread and coffee for a supposed family meeting, felt like a courtroom. Dr. Hastian and Shandian, the physician and therapist who'd been sidelined by Tahoma's lies, stood as silent witnesses to the truth. Sinida's mind raced, $60,000 stolen, a plan to abandon Kayleigh in Sunset Lodge, a forged power of attorney to seize his life. The betrayal cut deeper with every memory of Tahoma's false promises under the desert stars. Chenoa spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. The evidence is overwhelming. Bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, emails planning Kayleigh's institutionalization, and a forged document giving Tahoma control of his assets. This isn't just theft, it's elder abuse and fraud. Ai's face paled, her turquoise jewelry glinting mockingly. You can't prove intent, she stammered. Chenoa held up an email from Ai to Tahoma. Sell the house once he's in the lodge. We'll be gone before anyone notices. Tahoma's eyes darted to the door, as if escape were still possible. Dad, please, he begged, voice cracking. We were trying to help you. Kayleigh's gaze was steel. Help me? By stealing my future? By lying to my friends, saying I was too sick to see them? Sinida's heart ached at his words. She remembered Kayleigh's stories of herding sheep, his pride in building homes across the reservation. Tahoma had taken more than money. He tried to erase his father's dignity. She stepped forward, unable to stay silent. You laughed about leaving him alone, Tahoma. Called him a burden while you drank cocktails on his dime. Ai's sneer faltered, but she snapped, You're no saint, Sinida. Always playing the perfect nurse. Before Sinida could retort, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Chenoa's phone call to the police had set the final piece in motion. Tahoma's face crumpled, and Ai clutched her bag as if it held her last shred of control. The doorbell rang, and 2 officers stepped inside, their presence sobering the room. Tahoma Tso, Ai Tso, you're under arrest for financial exploitation, forgery, and conspiracy, one said, reading their rights. Tahoma's hands shook as he stood, while Ai's protests turned shrill. This is a mistake, she cried, but the officers were unmoved, guided by Chenoa's meticulous evidence. As they were let out, Sinida met Tahoma's eyes, searching for the man she'd loved. He looked away, diminished, his charm a hollow shell. Kayleigh reached for her hand, his grip steady. We did it, he whispered, but his voice held no joy, only the weight of a son's betrayal. Chenoa stayed behind, outlining the next steps, a court order to freeze Tahoma and Ai's accounts, restitution demands, and a prosecutor ready to pursue charges. Dr. Hastian and Shandian offered affidavits, confirming the harm caused by their interference in Kayleigh's care. The legal victory was clear, but Sinida felt the emotional cost. Her marriage, her trust, shattered. As the police cars vanished into the desert night, Sinida and Kayleigh sat in the quiet, the fry bread cold on the table. They'd won this battle, but what lay ahead? Could they rebuild from this wreckage? And how would their bond carry them forward? The desert held its secrets, but their fight was far from over, promising a future shaped by courage and truth. The desert dawn painted Kayleigh's adobe home in hues of gold and crimson, a quiet contrast to the storm of betrayal that had shaken Sinida Begay and Kayleigh just days ago. The confrontation with Tahoma and Ai, exposed as thieves who'd stolen $60,000 from Kayleigh's medical fund and planned to abandon him in a neglectful nursing home, had ended with their arrest, their scheme unraveled by Chenoa Yazi's airtight evidence and Kayleigh's stunning reveal of his hidden recovery. Now, in the aftermath, Sinida and Kayleigh faced a new horizon, one where pain could transform into hope. How would they rebuild from such a profound betrayal? And what new family would rise from the ashes of broken trust? You're about to see a heartwarming rebirth that'll leave you inspired. Stay with us, because this story's end is a testament to the strength of chosen bonds. Sinida sat on Kayleigh's porch, sipping coffee as the desert woke around them. The past week had been a whirlwind: police reports, legal meetings, and the emotional weight of Tahoma's betrayal. Her husband, once her partner under the reservation's starry skies, was now a stranger, his and Ai's plea deals ensuring restitution but no jail time. Sinida had moved out of their trailer, leaving behind wedding photos and memories that felt like lies. Kayleigh, ever her anchor, offered his guest room, his voice warm but firm. "This house is too big for one old man." She'd smiled, grateful for his strength, which mirrored her own. Kayleigh's recovery accelerated with Shandian, the reinstated physical therapist, guiding him. Within weeks, he was walking short distances with a cane, his steps shaky but proud. Sinida watched him one morning, crossing the living room to fetch his own coffee, his face alight with the same spirit that once herded sheep across the mesas. "You're stubborn as a mule," she teased, and Kayleigh's laugh filled the room, a sound she hadn't heard in months. They began new traditions, Sunday dinners of fry bread and mutton stew, joined by Kayleigh's sister, Etzila, who'd flown in from Tucson after learning of Tahoma's deceit. Etzila's embrace had been fierce. "You're more family than he ever was," to Sinida. Sinida found solace in gardening, transforming Kayleigh's barren backyard into a vibrant patch of corn, sage, and sunflowers. Each seedling she planted felt like a promise, to herself, to Kayleigh, to a future untainted by betrayal. Kayleigh joined her when he could, his cane sinking into the soft earth as he shared stories of his youth, weaving their bond tighter. One evening, as they harvested sage under a twilight sky, Kayleigh said, "You know, Sinida, you gave me back more than my legs. You gave me hope." Tears pricked her eyes, not from pain, but from the warmth of a connection deeper than blood. The community rallied around them. Friends Tahoma had isolated Kayleigh from return, filling the house with laughter during a belated birthday celebration for Kayleigh. He showed off his cedar flutes, carved with a steadier hand each day, his pride infectious. Sinida's colleagues at Dine Medical Center brought meals, their support easing her through divorce proceedings. The papers were signed quietly, Tahoma offering no resistance, his diminished figure in the courthouse a final goodbye to a love that never truly was. Yet Sinida felt lighter, as if shedding a weight she hadn't known she carried. Their new rhythm wasn't without challenges. Some nights, Sinida woke to memories of Tahoma's laugh, now laced with cruelty or Ai's sneers. But Kayleigh's presence, his quiet wisdom, his refusal to let bitterness win, kept her grounded. "We're stronger than their lies," he'd say, and she believed him. As Kayleigh walked further each day, Sinida found her own steps, moving into a small apartment nearby, close enough for their Sunday dinners to continue. The desert, once a witness to their pain, now cradled their healing, its vastness a reminder of possibilities. What had begun as a devastating betrayal had forged an unbreakable family. Cineda and Kale weren't just survivors. They were builders of a life richer than Tahoma and Ai could ever steal. As they sat together, watching the desert stars, Cineda knew they'd found something rare, a bond that thrived in the face of loss, rooted in trust and love. The desert stretched endlessly before Kale's home, its quiet beauty a mirror to the peace Cineda Begay and Kale had carved from their pain. A year after the confrontation, their lives bloomed like the sunflowers in Cineda's garden. Kale, now walking with just a cane, crafted flutes that sang with the spirit of the reservation, each note a defiance of the betrayal that nearly broke them. Cineda's apartment, filled with sage and laughter, became a haven where friends gathered, their Sunday dinners a tapestry of stories and healing. The scars of Tahoma and Ai's actions lingered, nights when Cineda questioned her trust, moments when Kale's eyes clouded with loss, but these faded against the strength they'd built. The community's embrace, from its Sila's visits to colleague support, wove a safety net stronger than blood. Kale's words on his birthday rang true. Sometimes, the worst moments lead to the best if you're brave enough to keep going. Cineda held those words close, her heart full, knowing she and Kale were family in the truest sense, forged not by birth, but by standing together when everything fell apart. This story isn't just theirs. It's a call to anyone who's faced betrayal. How did you rise? Share your journey in the comments. Your story could inspire someone else. If this moved you, hit subscribe and join our community. We're here to share tales of resilience and hope. Let's keep the conversation going, because together, we can find light in the darkest moments.